Friends, my name is Jesse and welcome back to Male Nurse Mentor. I must say, Happy New Year. We're in 2024 now. Some of you guys are probably on winter break. Some of you guys are maybe gonna get into the nursing program. Some of you guys are about to finish. So this video, friends, is for the people towards the end. You're about to finish, maybe you just finished, and now you're kind of having that NCLEX stress kind of popping up right into this mental bandwidth that you have. Oh man, the NCLEX, right? It's right around the corner. You see it on the horizon, right? It's the next thing. It's understandable. It stressed me out. It stressed everybody I knew out. There's really no way to kind of get around this. And I'm not here to say I can take the stress away, but I just want to be here to minimize it with sharing 3 steps that helped me pass the NCLEX on my very first try. So let's see if some of these steps help you. I'm hoping they do. Hopefully some of these steps can just help you fine-tune, your actual process for you. But good luck, friends, regardless. I'm here if you need me. Any other things, you can always reach out on Instagram, hit me on the DMs, comment down below. I'll answer back. But friends, let's get straight to it. Step 1. This is one step that a lot of people maybe overlook a bit. For me, I like breaking things down into steps. I wouldn't skip to step 2 or step 3 unless I do this step. And that is to identify your test date. I'll tell you why this is important. This is important because right from the jump, right, you're already super stressed out, but right from the start, you can alleviate some of this pressure, right? Sometimes when we graduate nursing school, we feel very rushed to get into the workforce and begin to make money, get our application into these new grad programs and try to get first in, right? So there's a lot of stress even apart from having to take the NCLEX. You're already thinking about the very next thing. So there's a lot of pressure. One way to alleviate some of this is just to accept it from the start. Give yourself 3 months. Give yourself a gap, right, of 3 months from today, right? Let's say I'm signing up for my NCLEX today. Give yourself 3 full months. And at that point, select your test start date at the 3-month mark, right? So for example, today's January 1st, 2024. 3 full months, January, February, all the way to the end of March, if not the very first week of April, is when I would today, right? Signing up today, that is when I would take my NCLEX. It's a little bit of something that people have to accept, right? In terms of, man, I did not have to wait until April to get licensed, right? I graduated in December, but that is just a hard truth, friends. One thing you have to realize is, do you want to take the NCLEX multiple times or do you just want to take it once? And that's something I had to accept. I went the route of, let me buckle down, let me give myself at least 3 full months, right, to study and give myself the best chance to pass on the first try. I don't want to kind of take it, fail, have to study, backtrack, take it again, and be worried about failing again, right? And instead of it having to take 3 full months or 4 full months, and now it takes me into month 7, month 8, by the end of the year, maybe I'm still without a job, right? I have this test just looming over me. That is my best recommendation for the people in step 1 on how to pass your NCLEX. Set a start date that is most appropriate for you, but I say with the minimum of 3 months. And I'll get into why 3 months a little bit later in the video because you can always move the test date. So just keep that in mind. All right, friends. Step 2, right? Step 2. This is where you decide what type of testing program, what type of testing material you will be using for your NCLEX prep, right? The 2 most popular ones, you probably already heard about them. Maybe you don't know which one to choose even today, right? It's Kaplan or UWorld. Those are the 2 most popular ones. When I was in nursing school, those are the ones that people were bouncing around. Even today, those are the ones that I've heard, most often bounced around. UWorld or Kaplan. How is it that you decide? And I get it, friends. That on its own could be a pretty stressful moment. I know people that bought both, but buying both is pretty expensive, especially if you're trying to do it for the 3 months that I'm telling you to do it for. It could be $300-$400 for almost each individual course, right? Especially when you're trying to get assessment tests and other things, added on top of it. It can get expensive pretty quickly. But I'll let you know, just from my own personal experience, you really only need one. You decide. For me, I decided on UWorld. Towards the very end of this video, I'll break down UWorld a little bit and how I used it to pass the NCLEX. So look at the timestamps down below, and then you can click on that towards the end of the video. I'll show you it on my computer screen. and I'll just kind of dive into it. Hopefully some of that will also be helpful, but I get it. You have to decide between Kaplan, UWorld. Both are expensive. You're a broke college student. But do your research, look on YouTube, look on Google, find out which one kind of fits you most best, right, in your study style. For me, I heard a lot of good things about UWorld. It was a little bit newer back 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years ago when I was studying for my NCLEX, but I went for it. It was the cheaper option at the time, and I'm glad. It's a little bit more expensive now, but the way that I used it was perfect for my own personal study style. And I can only really speak on UWorld. At that time, Kaplan had some other books and some other materials, and I think they kind of do a little bit. I took a glimpse on the website, and they have like a different angle to it. But the main gist with studying for the NCLEX is you're gonna do a lot of practice questions. So both are gonna have that for you. But for UWorld, a lot of where the money lies, right? The biggest reason why people go with UWorld is the rationales that they give you during these practice questions. Kaplan can give you other things, and I can't speak on those unfortunately too much because I didn't use it. But for UWorld, the rationales, all the questions, the way you can break it down, take very specific tests, I highly recommend UWorld. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, maybe one day in the future on this Male Nurse Mentor channel, but you know, I highly recommend them just because I use them and I passed on my very first try. But it doesn't go without saying, you need to put in the work, you need to put in the time. Use UWorld as a tool to help you learn how to pass and take the NCLEX. I call it test conditioning. That is ultimately what you're after. You know the material, you got it. Even if you don't know it fully, you can comprehend through a nursing mindset how to kind of get to these answers, right? You just have to learn how to take the test. Do your research, find out which one works for you. And so now for the third step, right, friends? I said 3 steps to pass the NCLEX, right? I was gonna explain to you. 1 was choose your start date. 2 was choose your NCLEX study material. Now 3, this is when you study. You just gotta do the work. You gotta put in the time. But there's certain ways to do it. And I can explain to you the ways that I did it, and I found that they worked very well. They were kind of broad to start, but then I very much fine-tuned it towards the end, and I was like a well-oiled machine at that point on studying, right? And how to study for an NCLEX. That's why towards the end of the video, I want to tell you exactly how it is that I used UWorld to study for the NCLEX. But just in general, I'll share with you some tips right now. So it doesn't matter, friends, whether you use Kaplan or UWorld or whatever study material, you got to put in the time, right? I say put in 6 to 8 hours every single day, right? 6 to 8 hours every day. Keywords are, of course, putting in the time, putting in the hours, but another one is every day. It's hard. Your brain is going to hurt. Trust me. Your brain is going to get saturated with information. But the point to this is repetition, is taking every single chance by every single day to study. If you have to take a day off, just be careful. You know, some people work differently, but I advise a little bit against that because you take a day off, you get out of the swing of it. Right now you're blitzing, right, to take this test. By taking it every day, you're just repetitively programming, conditioning your brain to take a test. You take a day off and you can get a little rusty, a little frustrated. There's like a certain skill, a certain conditioning. I keep using that word. There's a conditioning to taking this test. You're gonna see what I mean when you start to study for it. It's like, hey, I know the material, I know how to get to the answer, but man, my brain just hurts. How do I pace myself? How do I breathe through this? And the only way to learn that is just through repetitively studying for this test every single day. And I say 6 to 8 hours. That is the goal. But if some days you have to do less than 6 just to at least do it that day, it's still worth it. Even if it's 2 hours that day, right, on your day off, it's still worth it. So I spoke on the amount of time to study. I know that's a lot. Because of that, be careful and be mindful to take your breaks. I would always do it for like 30 minutes, right? So I'd break down my study hours, 6 to 8 hours. Like it'd pretty much be a good chunk of my day. I mean, I wasn't in school anymore. If I worked, it was like a part-time job. The rest of the time I did studying, right? Studying the rest of the day. So I would expand this. It wouldn't just be a 6-8 hour study session. I would do 30-minute session, take a 10-minute break, an hour session, take a 10-15 minute break. And I would do that until I would do 6 to 8 hours worth of studying every single day. And that is how you get through that. You do have to take breaks, eat your snacks, Take a break to watch a show, take a break to walk around, go to a store, go put gas, whatever it is you got to do. Your mind's going to be stimulated on a bunch of educational information. In between those moments, you got to take a break. You got to free your mind from that. Listen to music, watch a show. I was binging Breaking Bad during that whole time. For the people that know Breaking Bad, that show was long. I think I probably started Lost at the same time. In between all these breaks, I was just like knocking out all these shows. But you have to pace yourself. You have to, trust me, breaks are the key. And then another tip, friends, in regards to this. I said UWorld had a lot of rationales. Kaplan also has rationales. The point to studying this way for the NCLEX is to kind of listen to the rationales, right? Read the rationales. It's almost better to get a question wrong because your mind just instantly gets more attentive to the things you get wrong, as opposed to like gaining and giving you confidence when you get things right. You're like, oh, I got that right. You kind of move on. But when you get things wrong, you just automatically just kind of pay more attention to the rationales. The rationale on all these questions that you're going to practice is where all the meat is. That is what you have to study. So when you get something wrong, highlight that question, make a note, really look at the rationale. So that way when you go to take the question again right in the future, you go to answer it again, you can get it right. But you also want to do it in a way where it's process of elimination. You know how nursing school is by this point. I don't really have to explain the part where when I say the most correct answer, it probably means something now, right? Towards the end of the nursing program, when you graduate, you know what the most correct answer does, right? You know what that means. It doesn't feel good to hear those words, right? Because you know the question's going to be tricky. But that's what the NCLEX is. The NCLEX is a bunch of questions. Some of them are going to be correct, right? There's going to be more than one that's correct. It's going to be up to you to do process of elimination, come up with the rationale in your mind to decide which one is actually the most correct. And understanding the rationale, it helps you think like a nurse. So it doesn't matter even if you don't know the question, because you're already thinking like a nurse, you have this nurse rationale built in your mind, you can do process of elimination, even on questions that you don't know, and actually get the question right. Because I'm gonna let you know, friends, when you go to take the NCLEX, you're gonna feel like you don't know anything. Those questions are structured in a way where most likely you're not gonna know the actual answer. But because you have the habit of process of elimination, you have the rationale of a nurse already ingrained in stone in your mind by studying UWorld, by studying Kaplan, by studying for the NCLEX. When you don't even know the answer, you're still gonna get the answer right. But you're gonna come out of the test feeling like crap because you're not gonna know a lot of the actual questions. But because you can trust yourself, you put in the work, you'll come out okay. That's just another tip. And I guess one last little tip kind of in conjunction with that one is I'm gonna show you here in a bit on UWorld. But when you go through all the questions, go through them again, go through them again, go through them again. When you take your assessment, look at all the answers you got wrong. Maybe there's a rationale there as well. And then maybe retake that assessment if you can. Take it again, take it again. Just go through the motion. That's another big tip that I can't stress enough is just going through these questions. And I keep saying I'm gonna end it here with these tips, but I got one more actually for you, friends. And it's to mimic the same environment, replicate that environment, of you sitting at the desk in that, state building where you're gonna take your NCLEX. It's a boring building, there's no music, it's just you and a screen. If you can mimic this, replicate this as often as you can when you're studying. I know it's hard to study for 6 to 8 hours that way. I'm not saying I always studied that way. Sometimes I was chilling on the bed, sometimes I was at the kitchen counter. But oftentimes, friends, I would at least do a good chunk of my study session just sitting at a desk with a very uncomfortable chair, staring at the screen and just kind of going through it, trying to replicate what it would be like to actually take the test, right, at the state building. Because what you picture it to be is exactly what it's going to be. An uncomfortable, quiet environment, very, very proctored area. So just picture that. If you could replicate that, it's even better. So I think that is my last tip for now. And then just one big general advice, friends. I mentioned the word saturation, right? Your brain's gonna get saturated with information. Oh, we chose a test date 3 months out. You will know when you're ready to take the NCLEX, when your brain is fully saturated. And you are gonna know when that is. That is gonna be when you go up and wake up the next day, go to try to study, and your brain, it just hurts. You're like almost 3 months into this study, time period and your brain just hurts and you get to the point where you're like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm actually scared that I'm gonna forget the material that I learned. When you feel that fear that, oh, I'm gonna lose this material, I gotta go take the test now, and it's been that time frame, right? You're towards the end of the time frame, that is when you know you're ready to take the NCLEX. At that same time, this is where, oh, I'm glad I set it 3 months ahead, because now you can move it back. You can move it closer to you, the date is what I mean. You can move it closer. So if our test date's April 1st, we can move it to March 20th, March 18th, and that is ultimately what I did. As soon as I felt this way, I was like, let me look on NCLEX, let me see if I could reschedule this test sooner, and I was actually able to do that. A lot of people actually cancel towards the end, right, when they're about to take the test. So there's actually some pretty open spots, like right around the time of today, right? Some people, for whatever reason, they reschedule. And that's the thing too. If you feel like you're not ready, your test date has arrived, you can actually push it back. Give yourself another couple weeks. The problem with that could be though, that there's none in the time frame that you want. So just work with what you can, look at your options. Don't stress yourself out too much about that part. If you're not ready, it's not worth going in to take the test. And if you're ready, friends, go and see if you can actually move it closer to you. That test date is a little flexible, so try to do that. That is ultimately what I did, and it helped. Just give myself that test 2 weeks sooner. That's kind of how I played it out. Gave myself that test date 2 weeks sooner. I thought I was ready, went in, and I passed. So now, friends, I'm gonna shut this camera off, and we're actually gonna go onto my laptop. I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of UWorld and how it is that I used it. So hopefully it kind of connects better with what I was trying to explain in this video. So let's go. And so here we are now, friends, on UWorld. This is just an example, just to try to connect the dots a little better. Like I said, I'm not sponsored by UWorld. I'm not telling you, hey, you have to use UWorld. This is just the program that I used. And I just want to give you just some examples, right? Mainly of the QBank. So let's just jump there. So this is the QBank. We're creating a test now. And the main study point that I want to make when you go to study for the NCLEX is just continually undergoing questions, right? Practice questions after practice questions on all these different types of subjects. And UWorld here, for example, it has the subjects, right? So one thing you're going to want to do is kind of select adult health, for example, and just go to cardiology, right? Or cardiovascular, and then just make your test on that. And just really drill down adult health, cardiovascular. And then after you do that, you'll do adult health endocrine, right? Adult health GI, right? Adult musculoskeletal. And then you just go through all these, right? Then you can do child health, right? And really break it down. I know it seems kind of redundant, really tedious, but I can't stress this enough. After you do that one way through, right? Do adult health and then select all of them. And then let it just give you a bunch of, varied questions. One way to really break this down too is you can see which ones you eventually get incorrect. And you can make a test on the ones that are incorrect only, or just the ones that you eventually mark, right? So as you go through these, you can mark the ones that stand out to you. Then you could just make a test on all the marked ones, or eventually, just the unused ones. And for me, friends, you'll actually realize that you'll go through some of these test questions, pretty quickly. Because if you think about it, you have 3 months to study. Oh, how am I going to study for 3 months? You just take these questions over and over and over again. And trust me, there are so many questions. It says unused questions, 2,113, according to this. I don't know if it's that much or more. I actually feel it's probably more. But anyways, friends, that is for you to fully explore on your actual test time, test prep time. But that is just in SparkNotes, how I studied for the NCLEX, just to give you some examples. Just really drill down on all the questions and do them over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Sorry, like sounding like a broken record, but that part is very important. You will see what I mean as you go through this a little bit. The rationale is where the meat is, and going through these questions over and over again is where the meat is. But anyways, friends, I will see you guys on the next one, as always, and welcome to the new year. I'm excited to be here. I do want to say before I leave, I finally crossed 500 subs, and that is awesome. There's a community here building slowly over time, and that makes me happy.
But regardless, friends, all I'm trying to do is just add value, be helpful in some way, give the information that I wish I had, when I was starting this journey. That is it. See you on the next one.